Your Phillies have returned to the East. The schedule takes a step back into the National League East. To make up for earlier struggles and to continue to battle back into the race, they'll have to succeed against the East. That opportunity begins tonight. Well, it certainly seems like forever since the last time we saw some of the Phillies faithful coming through the gates here at Citizens Bank Park. The Phillies return home. They start a 6-game homestand tonight against the Washington Nationals. Now, taking a look at some of the numbers leading into this ball game for the Phillies. Standing-wise, the Phillies 8.5 games back behind the Atlanta Braves, 2 games behind the Nationals, who are in second place at 34 and 34. Both teams are underachieving so far in 2013, but not against the East. The Phillies are overachieving, partly because a lot of their games against the East have been against the Marlins and against the Mets. Doesn't matter, though. They have 16 wins and 9 losses. Hi, everybody. I'm Tom McCarthy along with Chris Wheeler. The Phillies are getting a little healthier tonight because John Ladden returns from the disabled list. Carlos Ruiz is due to come back shortly, so is Chase Utley. But we begin with John Ladden getting a chance to face his old team.
Yeah, it'll be good to have him back. The Phillies thought they had a pretty good fifth starter when the season started in this guy, Tom, and he started out pitching very, very well in his first couple games. This was the first start that he had on a cold night here at Citizens Bank Park against the Kansas City Royals, and he did a really good job in this game and even got a bunt down, a big sacrifice bunt that helped the Phillies with some runs in that game. He would pitch to a no decision as he did in his first 2 starts, and then all of a sudden he would run into some trouble later on in a game at Cincinnati. In that game that time, as you look at the numbers here, you see how good he was in the first 2. That game at Cincinnati, all we could talk about that night was he was up with his stuff, up. Turned out later he had a bad knee and he really couldn't bend and get the ball down. So as a result, he really got hit hard in that game and he had to go on the disabled list.
Well, and he faces his old team for the first time since coming over to Philadelphia. His old manager, Davey Johnson, said it's going to be a little weird. Ryan Zimmerman said, you know, we faced old teammates before, but this is a Nationals team that really is underachieving this season.
Well, they've been challenged offensively. We certainly know what that's like around here. The Phillies had so many problems with their offense, but certainly that has been the way with the Washington Nationals. Here on the road, take a look. They got off to a decent start, a little over 500 on the road. You play 500 on the road, you're fine. And the first 21 games, and then the last 16 games, not only are they 6 under 500, but look at the numbers, how bad they are. Just a 197 average, not scoring many runs, way down in homers, and their earned run average for their staff is up, and as a result, they're not playing very good baseball. Now, they've had their injury problems, too, as you talked about with the Phillies, Tom. But, yeah, they really are underachieving right now when you consider the year they had last year.
All right, well, the Phillies have to get after it now as we reach back into the National League East. It starts tonight against the Nats. Dan Herron making his second start this year against the Phillies. And, of course, John Ladden making his 4th start overall, coming back from the disabled list. He's been on the DL since the month of April. Well, we're going a little Atlantic City on you tonight. Some of the sand sculptures that we'll see out in left field here at Citizens Bank Park. We'll tell you more about that a little later on and also tell you about the lineups and first pitch. Phillies baseball is brought to you by Budweiser, the official beer of Major League Baseball. We've been celebrating the greatest moments in Major League Baseball for over 30 years. Great times are waiting. Grab some buds. By Toyota. See where Toyota takes you. Test drive one at your Toyota dealer. Toyota, let's go places. By Citizens Bank, where good banking is good citizenship. Isn't it time you experience good banking? By Coca-Cola, the official soft drink of the Phillies. By Xfinity, the official HD triple play provider of your Phils. And by Independence Blue Cross. We are creating a more coordinated healthcare system that is built around you. Independence Blue Cross, changing the game. With the Phillies and the Washington Nationals, we just saw something rather different. The Fanatics four-wheeler just died. The Fanatic can't get it started. He's having some trouble. The lights are going on, but he just can't get it turned over. Jason Worth coming over to kind of help out. They just couldn't get it started. So what did they do? They just lifted it up over the railing. And that is where it sits now with the lights on as we speak. A lot of entertainment for a lot of the folks who are sitting there in left field. We get set for tonight's ball game. John Lannon delivers a strike to Jeff Cobertus. So it's no balls and one strike. That was funny.
That was different. Nice. It's good that all those young guys were around to pick that baby up.
Seriously.
For it.
Check swing ground ball to third. Michael Young is there. One away. Let's take a look at the rest of the Nationals starting lineup, brought to you by Xfinity, your home for the most live sports. After Cobertus, it's Rendon, then Zimmerman and Worth. Ian Desmond bats fifth, Chris Marrero sixth, and the bottom third of Kurt Suzuki, Steve Lombardozzi, and Dan Herron. And they'll face Phillies left-hander John Lannon, who's just activated from the disabled list, facing his old team. He's played in more games than anybody else in Nationals history.
Yeah, see, he's only had 3 starts this year. Of course, been out a couple months after he hurt that knee. Third start of the season. First 2 starts were real good, and then he was really struggling that game at Cincinnati. Turned out he had a bad knee.
Pitches off the outside corner. It's 2-0.
He's a big ground ball pitcher. He always has been. A very, very high ratio of outs or balls hit on the ground for John Lannon.
3-0 now to Anthony Rendon. Rendon playing second base for the injured Danny Espinosa. He may have just hit himself into the everyday lineup even when Espinosa comes back, and he just walked on 4 pitches. So he's aboard with 1 out here in the top of the first.
He's hitting 10 straight, over 400. Played some third base when Zimmerman was on the disabled list. He's been a big-time prospect for them for a while. And he may be one of those guys that they're going to have a problem not playing him.
Ryan Zimmerman was one of those same guys after he was drafted by the Nationals some years ago. Overall hitting .267 this year with 8 home runs and 33 runs batted in.
This has to be very strange for him to hit off Lannon for the first time. All the games that they played together with him as the third baseman.
Ball, and it's 0-2.
And he certainly knows that ground balls are a big part of Lannon's repertoire because he fielded enough of it. So he probably has in his mind, I better stay off that sinker, and he's throwing in breaking balls to start out. Sinker and changeup is where he gets a lot of his ground balls.
Lannon 42 and 52 during his years with the Nationals. And all those years seem to be right alongside Ryan Zimmerman. He takes high, and it's 1-2. And speaking of Ryan Zimmerman, our Geico quote of the day is Ryan talking about John. John did a lot for this team and for this organization, but when you face someone like that, you treat them like any other player. We faced a bunch of guys that we played against or we played with. It is what it is.
What it is what it is, but when it's a pitcher against you, it's different. It's one thing standing at third when a guy is an offensive player, maybe hitting the ball down that way or batting, but when you're facing a guy has been your opening day starter 2 years in a row. This is a situation that Zimmerman has to just block out and just go, well, it's just another guy out there, and this is what he throws.
Yeah, I mentioned most games played, most games pitched in Nationals history. There's a ground ball foul, and it remains 2-2. Lannon, during his major league career with the Nationals, was 42 and 52, an earned run average of 4.01. A former 11th round draft pick by Washington back in 2005. Two balls, 2 strikes. In the dirt, now it's 3-2, and that got a piece of Zimmerman. It bounced up and hit him.
He didn't give him his base.
No, he didn't give him his base.
No. You know, you're watching DeMuro down there, and
he did not put his hands up.
He didn't do anything.
Means dead ball. And now they're going to point him over to first base. Joey Emanuel will come out. Davey Johnson had started to come out with the athletic trainer. Davey was coming out more to argue with Mike DeMuro. And now Alberto Quintero he's pretty adamant that it didn't hit him in the foot.
Yeah, it did. On the fly. Hit him right on the foot. That's a hit batter. Went off the top of his toes. I don't think Zimmerman, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think Zimmerman's going to put on an act like that to get a hit batter. Do you think he would do that?
I think any hitter would do that.
Normally
No,
you see their reaction right away, and as soon as the thing hits him, he starts hopping.
I don't, but I'm also surprised that Mike DeMuro just awarded him first after saying that it didn't hit him.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, I don't know what he thinks happens here.
I think he thought it was just in the dirt.
He said ow right away. I don't know. I just don't believe a player like that is going to do that. But
well, he did see the baseball. Now, it used to be they looked at shoe polish to see if there was any shoe polish on the ball. First and second, one out. Jason Worth is the hitter. Phillies will set up for two.
If Ryan Zimmerman was acting, I'm very disappointed. Even though I know you do what you got to do sometimes.
Jason Worth, 262 with 6 home runs and 15 runs batted in. He spent some time on the disabled list. In fact, the Phillies did not see him the last time they faced the Nationals, the only time they faced the Nationals.
Well, you can tell Lannon's command is off. It's not real sharp right now. He got an out on a check swing in this inning when a pitcher wasn't a strike.
That was a concern. That's one of the reasons why they wanted him to have one more start. But then they felt it would be better to have him come up here and pitch. They felt like they needed a starting pitcher. He threw 7 innings in his last outing in his rehab start. 2-1 to Jason Worth. And a line drive base hit to left field. Rendon rounding third, heading for home. He's going to score. And the Nationals take a 1-0 lead here in the top of the first. An RBI single by Worth, his 15th of the year. So a walk, a hit batter, and now a single. And the Phillies trail it.
And we got behind him 2-1, just threw a high sinker there, it looked like it. Jason Worth hits a line drive base hit.
So Rendon scores the game's first run, and now a guy that's probably the hottest hitter for the Nationals, Ian Desmond, will come to the plate with 2 on and 1 man down.
Hot hitter, on base a lot too. Tremendous on base percentage.
Overall hitting .287 with 9 home runs and 33 runs batted in. He takes a strike.
These guys have been very offensively challenged this year, no doubt about it. They just have not scored a whole lot or been a good offensive team for a variety of reasons. Injuries are part of it.
Two Wheels is talking about Desmond's reached base safely in 18 straight. Missed inside with a cutter, and it's 1-1.
He really needs maybe to try and go away from him, change up, try and get that double play ball.
Well, he may have it right there. One hopper. Rollins has it, flips to second for one. A quick toss to first in time. A 6-4-3 double play. He threw the changeup, and Desmond hit it sharply, but hooked it right to Rollins on one hop. 1 run scores, 1 hit for the Nationals. They leave 1, and John Lannon needed this. A 6-4-3 double play to get him out of the top of the first. Charlie Manuel's lineup. It's brought to you by Xfinity, your home for the most live sports. Leading it off at center field, Ben Revere. Michael Young bats second. Jimmy Rollins hits third, followed by Ryan Howard and Dominic Brown. Delman Young, the right fielder, bats sixth. Kevin Franzen starts again tonight over at second base. He'll bat seventh. Humberto Quintero hits eighth. John Ladden ninth, and they'll face veteran right-hander Dan Herron. 4-8 this year, an earned run average of 5.70.
There are the numbers on Dan Herron. He does allow a lot of home run. That's a ton of home run balls this early in the year. 17. His fastball's nowhere near where it used to be. One thing, he doesn't walk batters. He will give up hits. Our scouting report for Budweiser on him. Fastball in the 88 to 92 range. He'll average around 90. Cutter, real good splitter. But last time out, he threw him with all fastballs and sliders. He's never beaten the Phillies. Has a no decision against them this year.
Yeah, 0-3 overall, 5.79 ERA. Here's Ben Revere. Revere has hit in 7 consecutive ball games.
Aaron used to have a real good fastball and he used to be fastball split. Has that little. It's not a hesitation in his delivery. It's just deliberate. It's slow.
Revere takes a strike. It's 2-1. Ben's average is at 271 with no home runs and 8 runs batted in. He's kind of turned things around, and this road trip really helped him. Hits it down the left field line. Lombardozzi will give it a look. It's out of play.
Oh, nice night here at Citizens Bank Park. Time to check in with our Nissan keys to tonight's ball game. Well, positive vibes maybe when you get back home, hit in this ballpark, play at home, stay in your own house. Be nice for a while. The Phils are head to head with the Nats again, and they've had a little bit of tension with them the last year or so. It's been kind of fun.
Nationals 1-2 of 3, and the only other series these guys faced each other, it was in DC. 3 balls, 2 strikes to Revere.
A lot of games left to go with these guys and the Braves.
And a called strike 3. He fooled him with a pitch on the outside part of the plate. One away here in the bottom of the first.
Do something that broke late.
Almost looked like a cutter.
Cutter, slider, yeah.
Missed his spot.
I see why it fooled Revere. That was really late.
Michael Young had 16 hits on the road trip for the Phillies and 40 at-bats. He has 61 career at-bats against Dan Herron.
Yeah, Herron a lot of years in the American League. Originally signed by the Cardinals.
Outside and low, and it's 2-0.
He had some years with Arizona.
Of course, the Nationals signed him as a free agent. He was with the LA Angels of Anaheim the last couple of years. He's allowed 10 earned runs in his last 9 innings and 15 hits during that time.
Yeah, the only thing he doesn't do is walk a lot of batters. I think he could throw up some prodigious numbers if he were walking guys. He just he's come back from 3 balls now twice to hitters.
Michael Young pulls it toward the hole, scooped up on the backhand by Desmond. Yeah, there are 2 outs.
First 2 guys have run 3-ball counts on him. He doesn't walk them.
Outs. Here's Jimmy Rollins. Rollins batting third again. Overall hitting .262 with 4 home runs and 24 runs batted in. Playing in his 70th ball game of the year. And it's 1 ball and no strikes.
And very durable, and they hope to keep him that way.
He's obviously been battling that sore foot, which he has the guard on, and a sore hip.
There's that guard Tom's talking about from that foul ball. He had 2 off his foot in 2 pitches.
Out in front of an off-speed pitch, and it's 1-2.
Talk about all those homers, too. 11 of them by right-handed batters, 6 by lefties for a total of 17.
Lucky McDonald's Phillies home run jackpot contestant is Charles Centering of Atco. Phillies hit a home run in tonight's ball game, and Chuck will win $200. In the dirt, 2-2.
We saw him that game in Washington earlier this year. He threw a ton of splits in that game. Tonight, he's throwing a lot of fastballs, cutters, looks like. Last time out, they have him throwing a lot of fastballs and sliders. Maybe they were cutters.
Rollins pulls it toward first. It's a fair ball. Marrero will take it unassisted to the bag. 1-2-3 go the Phillies. A 16-pitch inning for Dan Herron. We go to the second. Nationals lead it 1-0. Back again tomorrow and Wednesday. Both games are at 7:05, and tickets are available for both of those games. You can go to Phillies.com right now and purchase your tickets, or stop by the box office. They'll always be happy to see you. Chris Marrero leads it off. Formerly one of the top prospects in the Nationals organization. Nationals went out and signed some free agents these last couple of years, which didn't leave any room at the end for Marrero. 306 hitter down in the minors with 10 home runs.
Especially at first base with LaRoche.
LaRoche, though, has been struggling lately, and that's the reason he's not playing tonight. He's 0 for 12 against Lannon lifetime. High chopper to third. Nice hop for Michael Young. Hey, Phillies fans, tomorrow at 5, Phillies broadcaster Larry Anderson will be talking Phillies sports. Plus, get a live report from Miami to preview Game 6 of the NBA Finals. Watch Phillies Sports Talk tomorrow at 5, only on Comcast Sports. They could probably even talk to Larry about tomorrow's Game 6 between Miami and San Antonio, don't you think?
Larry is a great conversationalist in many areas.
And whoever's leading the series are always his team.
His team. Yeah, I get that all winter during college football season about his Bruins or his Trojans,
his Ducks,
or his Ducks, or whoever in the Pac-10 happens to be winning something.
0-1 the count to Kurt Suzuki.
He had Justin Rose in the open yesterday.
He did pick Justin Rose.
Yeah, sure he did.
He picked him at about 6:30, 7 o'clock.
He picked him right after Phil Mickelson's third shot didn't go down. Yeah, he did. He picked him.
Here's the 1-1. In the dirt, 2-1.
Appreciate on his part. Very good.
And Quintero goes out to chat with Lannon. Kurt Suzuki sitting just .215 for the Nationals. 2 home runs and 12 runs batted in. Softened him up there. 2-2. Change up he was out in front of.
And that's what he got his out on. Talked about that in the first inning. Maybe go away with a changeup and see if he could get a double play ball. Well, you know, he hit a bullet, the Desmond, as you described it, Tom. But the bottom line was he didn't go to 3-1 on him. Maybe had to challenge him. And he'll try and get you out with ground balls.
Broke his bat, floats it into right field, a base hit.
Now, see, there's a guy that knows him a little bit. Although Suzuki didn't catch him that much last year until the end of the year. But he knows how he's going to go away a lot of times to try and get outs.
Yeah, the end of the year was when Lannon arrived in Washington.
Watch, this is a really good pitch he makes right there. Change-up. But it's almost like Suzuki was in his head a little bit, and he's going to dive out there and look. And even though he makes a great pitch, breaks his bat, he got a base hit out.
Lannon made a spot start for the Nationals in the middle of the year in 2012, but then went back down to the minor leagues, and then came up when Strasburg was shut down. And he wound up going 4-1 last season for Washington. Did not make the postseason roster, though.
I know, try to pitch inside the way he just did there with his fastball to try and set up that stuff away to get ground balls. Saw enough of it over the years, and he pitched really well against the league, except against the Phillies.
1-1 to Lombardozzi. Lombardozzi hitting .221. No home runs, 13 runs batted in. Because of the injury to Bryce Harper, Lombardozzi's out in left field tonight. And he fouls it down the left field line.
Made a mistake with off-speed pitch there. Still would probably like to go back out there again with a good one, get another double play ball, and go in the dugout.
There goes the runner. Pitch is popped foul. And out of play into the camera well.
Great jump by Suzuki. He has that bag stolen, but 2 strikes on the hitter. And then we'll take a called third there. And Aaron, pitcher on deck. He can swing the bat a little bit. He's not one of those guys you look in the 9-hole and say, we'll throw 3 and get him out of there. He'll battle you. Pitches, foul balls.
There is a pitch count for Lannon, but it's a kind of a wait and see pitch count, just to see how he's going along. I mean, as we said, he threw 7 innings his last time out. He really minimized his pitch count through 5, and that's why he wound up going 7 in his rehab start.
These guys are fouling a lot of pitches off and running his count up quick. One of the things they look for too is in a pitch count, especially when you're back, how many jams are you in? How hard are you working with those pitches?
Suzuki doesn't go, and the pitch is lined toward left field. That'll drop in front of Dominic Brown for a base hit. Third hit allowed by Lannon. Reminder that tonight's game is also available in Spanish. Just use the SAP button on your television or change the language through the menu on your cable box.
High changeup. Trying to throw the changeup there to get that double play ball, but it was up in the zone and nailed. Probably be bunt situation, you would think. But he mentioned Herron can swing the bat a little bit. Phillies have to look for a bunt.
Aaron, lifetime .224 hitter.
Yeah, when you hear a guy's a .224 hitter, he's had enough at bats. You go, that's pretty good.
He bunts at and foul tips the first pitch.
He looks like he'd rather hit than bunt. He has 2 sacks this year. It's 2 lifetime homers.
throws him a curveball. He bunts it toward third. Lanning's got a play. There's the lead runner who was retired. 1-5 on the putout. Suzuki got no jump whatsoever off second.
Because the ball was in the air. Probably he sees that in the air a little bit off the bat, as you see, because he just slugs at it. So he wanted to make sure he doesn't get doubled. Phillies do a good look at Young and Lannon do a nice job of communicating on that. That Lannon's going to be able to come off. He's following through that way. Young feels he's got that area. I can retreat immediately. That's really a sight thing they just did. Good job.
Look out. Has lost his bat. And it went right into the lap of a gentleman sitting in the second row. That's right. Wear it with confidence, sir. Said he was fine, which is a good thing. He got up right away. Showed it to the crowd.
Here comes the helicopter. He was ready for it, too.
He was.
Yeah. He did a nice job, a little recoil and everything. That was one of the better bat grabs we've ever seen.
He did say he was going to give it back, but I believe they've told him that he can keep it. In the dirt, 1-1 to Coburnus.
A lot of those people are the same folks that come to games here to a lot of games, and they know the game and they know, well, we're supposed to give it back. They'll give us another one. So as you said, Tommy, he offered.
He's showing where the bat hit first before it landed in his lap. In the dirt, 2-1 to Coburnus, who grounded to third on a check swing. His only time up.
Well, they just want to make sure he's okay, too.
Lanning's at 40 pitches so far with 2 outs here in the second. Try to work around a little trouble here.
Coburnus thought he was ahead 3-1 after that pitch. He thought it was a little low. This guy can really run. Busting on that first check swing.
Tried to check that time. He went around, says the home plate umpire Mike DeMuro. At the side, he's retired. First strikeout of the night for John Lannon comes at an opportune time as the Nationals lead 2 in their half of the second. We go to the bottom of the second. Nats 1, Phillies nothing. Some of the performances prior to the start of tonight's ball game on Faith and Family Night here at Citizens Bank Park as the Nationals lead the Phillies 1-0. Great rendition of the national anthem by the combined choir Nationals scored their run in the first. The Phillies still looking for their first base runner. They went down in order in their half of the first. So Ryan Howard will lead it off. It'll be Howard, Dominic Brown, and Delman Young. All I want for my birthday is a home run from Ryan Howard. Well, I think we would all take that right now in celebration of that young man's birthday.
Yeah.
I know Ryan would take it. He only has one home run over his last 100+ at bats. I mean, it's been such a long time. There was one down the left field line. Pitches a strike to Ryan Howard. Out in front of a changeup, 0-2. Ryan with 7 home runs and 34 runs batted in. Well, even though he hasn't hit a lot of home runs over the last month, in fact, since May 7th, he has just 1 home run. There was an opposite field home run here at Citizens Bank Park. He was 11 for 33 on the road trip.
Charlie said tonight in his pregame radio show that he thought he was swinging a little bit better the last couple of days. He hoped that's what he was seeing, and that maybe this ballpark could bring out the best in him.
Well, maybe a guy that leads the league in home runs too can bring out the best in him, and Dan Herron.
All those things could factor into some good things. Boy, are they deep in that shift.
Inside, 2-2 to Howard. Ryan fouls that one off his leg. I don't think it was his foot. I think it was his leg. He doesn't look any worse for wear, though. He was limped a little bit out of the box, then stood straight up.
He was up a little high. Oh, shin bone shot.
Ryan hits one in the air, deep to right field. Worth going back. Forget about that one. It is gone into the second deck and then right on out. And the Phillies have tied this ball game up at 1. Happy birthday, young man. A home run from Ryan Howard. And that was a towering shot.
Yeah, that was like the old days, that one. All those things factored into it. Coming back here. Nice hot night. Dan Herron, as Tom mentioned, the guy who throws a lot of home runs. And he really stayed back nicely on that, especially after he just smoked his shin with a pitch before that. There you go again. Watch him load up and boom, way up in the air. That was just a matter how far it was going to go.
Well, his last home run was on the 29th of May against the Boston Red Sox. His one before that was the 7th of May against the Giants. And it's won $200 for Charles Centerin of Atco in a McDonald's home run jackpot.
Charlie was hoping too that maybe Dominic Brown could get it going a little bit back here at home, because on the road trip he really struggled, and he was so hot before he left town.
1 ball, 1 strike to Dominic Brown. And a foul ball. It's 1-2. Charlie does usually have a sense when guys are starting to swing better. At least it seems that way. Maybe it was the power of positive thinking.
He brought that up before the game, and he really felt that he saw some things over the weekend that were positive.
Dominic sends one in the air to left center field. On the run is Colburnus out toward the track. He'll have some room. And he makes the catch, and there's 1 out.
Did a little better job of waiting on something off speed. He's been getting eaten alive on that trip with slow stuff. And you see how he stayed back a little bit there and hit it the other way, as opposed to really jumping and swinging and missing or rolling it over.
That'll bring Delman Young to the plate, who didn't start the 3 games against the Rockies. Well, Wheels, you mentioned that Charlie brought it up on your radio show today, on the pregame show. Murphy also brought it up in his long pregame chat with the members of the Philadelphia media today, too.
He did. And, you know, Wills, as you were saying, that he seemed genuinely excited about Ryan Howard and the way he'd been swinging the bat on this latest road trip. He said he was really barreling up a lot of different balls, and he said the only thing he wasn't doing was getting them elevated. And he said he really thought it was just a matter of time before he was able to get those balls up in the air, and when he gets those balls up in the air, and things like that happen. So he was excited about that, and he almost, you know, he really felt that maybe this ballpark would get him going. So maybe it will.
Delman Young hits one off the end of the bat. Jason Worth makes the catch. There are 2 outs. Charlie had a long gathering with the media today, and this swing right here is one of the topics he had that he talked about.
Well, that was a great replay. Again, you see how well he stayed loaded on that one, and then explodes into the ball right there. Now he has that bottom hand that he loops into the ball, and that's always been his hitting style. But it's worked for a long time.
All he wanted was a home run from Ryan Howard for his birthday. He was ready with the thank you and everything.
Tommy, before it gets back to Charlie Manuel, you know how they like to agitate down there. It's his radio show, not mine. Please.
I was just about to go tell him.
Thanks. Well, you know, Murph, I know you'd think that way. I don't think you would do it. But there are people down there that are already. I just stop that.
Let me make a note of that.
Isn't that a good point?
It is a good point.
Thank you.
You know what, though? But it's still worth making a point. Wheels.
I didn't say that.
Wheels said it's his. How did he phrase it, Murph? Out my radio show?
Yeah, here we go.
Not his radio show is what I heard.
Thank you.
You got it.
Thanks, Murph. Baby.
3-1 to Kevin Franzen.
I mean, there are some people down there that are inclined to hear things and then run right to people with them.
Where's Doob sitting?
Oh, he would love to have heard that.
Now the 3-1 to Franzen. And he grounds one through the hole on the left side, a base hit. Kevin's now 8 for his last 18. Part of the reason why he got the nod tonight over Freddie Galvis, because he's hitting the ball well.
You're going to give up something defensively with him, and he'll be the first to admit that when you're talking about a Galvis comparison. But he hits a lot of balls hard. Checking out that leg, Cosby.
Yeah, not the knee, but the leg that he fouled the ball on.
Yeah, he didn't have to worry about running much with that thing he just hit. But that had to hurt, that foul ball right before that.
Certainly didn't make it seem like it hurt, though.
No.
Here's Quintero. Quintero, 239 with a home run and 5 RBIs, and he takes outside 1-0.
Talked about Herron being a guy who could help himself with the bat. Well, Lannon on deck for the Phillies is not a good hitting pitcher, but he can bunt. Does have a home run, though.
He does.
Just one less than Dan Herron.
Quintero was a tad out front of that one. It's 2-1. Carlos Ruiz is back at the ballpark today. Took some batting practice with the team. Ran a lot after his rehab assignment with the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs over the last couple days. That ball's hit back toward the middle. A base hit for Quintero. Franzen's thinking about third. Nope, he's going to stop at second. And that puts first and second for John Ladden. Quintero now 5 for his last 18. It's a pretty good chance that if Carlos Ruiz feels good tomorrow, that he could be activated and may not go out on another rehab assignment.
Right. Yeah, they were talking about that down there today. That is a possibility. You could tell they would like that.
Ladden 1 for 2 this year.
Good job by Quintero. Get the lineup turned over this way no matter what happens.
Franzen at second. Quintero at first. A 25-pitch second inning. Low, ball 2. For a grand total of 42 with his 26th this inning. Lannon hits it off the end of the bat. Might be playable for Zimmerman over toward the dugout. He reaches in, makes the catch, and it is a catch. Yep. He had it, established himself, and then went down the stairs. And the side is retired. But a 430-foot home run from Ryan Howard for that youngster right there. Ryan may not even have known it was his birthday, but the present is just as good, just the same, into the second inning. On the Phillies.com, go to the fan section for all the information, and please submit your answer on the subject line. Wheels, the question is, Bob Boone won 7 Gold Gloves in his career. Which 2 catchers won more than 7?
Boone's here tonight. I'm going to go over and ask him.
He is here. Bob Boone is a special assistant to general manager Mike Rizzo.
Could be down in Mike Rizzo's box down the first base line there, watching the ball game. Boy, he was a heck of a player. Boone went from here to have a great career also with the Angels.
California Angels at the time.
With Gene Mauch.
Anthony Rendon leads it off here in the third, 1-1 game. Rendon takes a fastball inside. Rendon scored the run for the Nationals after a 1-out walk in the first on 4 pitches. It's the first strike he's seen tonight. Curveball waved at and missed, 72 miles an hour. Back-to-back strikeouts for Lannon.
Here's that play that ended the inning. As Tom describes it, Zimmerman has control, and then he goes down the steps, as opposed to that play in Milwaukee where the fielder went down the steps. See, he's still right there. He's out of the dugout, catches it right there, both feet outside the dugout, has control, and now goes into the dugout. Great call. That was Betancourt who hit the one, or made the play in Milwaukee down the third baseline. He had one foot on a step when he caught it.
Yeah, and here the top step is in play.
Sure.
Zimmerman was hit by a pitch, hitting the foot.
And you could see how Zimmerman, he's a smart player. He knows the rules. He knows if he puts that foot down towards into the dugout and he catches it, it's not going to count. So he did everything he could to keep both feet outside the dugout.
Curveball whacked foul. It's 2-2. Back toward the middle, a base hit for Zimmerman. A one-out single. And that'll bring Jason Worth to the plate. During the 2013 season, Turkey Hill will contribute $100 for each Phillies victory and 5 cents for each carton of Phillies Grand Slam ice cream, sold to support the Phillies youth baseball and softball programs.
They've been booing real hard. I know a lot of people haven't gotten to their seats yet.
Well, they booed him when he was introduced by Dan Baker.
Yeah.
Before the game.
Right.
They booed a little bit his first step back, but that was a little louder.
Oh, this is much better.
Jason drove in the run for the Nationals with a single his first time up. Outside, and it's 2-0. Jason always was deliberate. This last year with the Phillies, he averaged a little more than 4.5 pitches per at-bats. Phillies don't have a guy that does that kind of work at the plate anymore. That's inside, 3-1. I think Quintero just asked where that pitch was. He said it was inside.
No, because he looked like he got in a called strike on one very similar to that earlier in the count.
Ground ball toward third, a foul ball.
Worth is getting pretty good swings at him, so you think they would run here 3-2 with one out.
Taking a glance at our Mazda leaders, and Jason Worth is among the leaders in home runs here at Citizens Bank Park. In fact, 4 of the 5 active leaders are here in the yard this evening. Ryan Howard, of course, leads the way. Chase Utley is second. Saw Pat Burrell on the last road trip.
Pat Burrell's in some ballpark right now looking through a screen. His new role as a scout for the Giants.
Zimmerman leads off first. And they'll throw over just because what Wheels mentioned that he may go.
Yeah, they just want to make sure if he leaves a little bit early, they think, well, maybe we could catch him. But this is really an obvious running situation because the swing's worth high that line, and they're not afraid of him swinging and missing here.
Zimmerman doesn't go.
Yeah, I'm really surprised. If Worth were up there hacking at this guy, swinging and missing, but Davey Johnson does not want to strike out double play here with a hot hitter like Desmond on deck, I guess.
Swing and a miss. He got it.
He knew he was going to swing and miss.
Third strikeout.
That's why Davey's where he is. He really showed no signs in that at bat of swinging and missing, especially on a 3-2 count. John Lannon gets a real good pitch there down and away to him, and he swings over. May have been ball 4. See if he crosses his knees. Yeah, it's close.
Desmond hit into a 6-4-3 double play his only time up. And now with Worth retired, he's up with a runner at first. Takes inside. It's 1-0.
Lannon doing what he has to do to succeed, and that's watch at home, and he's constantly in and out with the ball. In the middle of the plate, he's one of those guys really gets hurt. But when he's in and out and he can keep hitters off balance, he's effective. Oh, see, that was down the middle. And there's that We're going to talk about that. We better not do that one again.
The only thing that helped him was that it was 85 miles an hour.
Look at that. Yeah, that's a real good swing. You just don't want to do that. Saw him so many times when he was with the Nationals, and the Phillies would have trouble with him during games when he would move the ball in and out, change speeds, and all of a sudden he'd make mistakes in the middle of the plate, and they got it. I like the way he tries to pitch inside, though. He's like Jamie Moyer, not a guy that's going to overpower anybody, but yet he's not afraid to come inside. Some guys that don't throw real hard do not want to throw the ball inside. As a result, hitters lean out, they dive out, and they hit you.
Breaking ball hit in the air to center field. Playable for Ben Revere. And the side is retired. No runs. One hit. And one man left. Pretty good job by John Lannon to get through the third. We go to the bottom of the third, and Ben Revere will lead it off. Dealer, ChevyDealer.com. By McDonald's, I'm loving it. And by Toyota. See where Toyota takes you. Test drive one at your Toyota dealer. Toyota, let's go places. The Boathouse Row was shown an awful lot this past weekend while the U.S. Open was going on in Marion. They had different sites or different shots of the city. The city looked beautiful, of course.
Sure did.
So did Marion.
That was a great exhibition for the city of Philadelphia, for the suburbs, just for the whole area. Fans evidently were just great out there. Tremendous tournament. Tom Watson here tonight threw out the first ball, former Open champion.
Ben Revere leads it off, shows bunt, bunts it foul. It's 0-1. Revere struck out looking his first time. He's 0 for 1. And a line drive caught by the second baseman Rendon. Oh, so right on the nose by Ben Revere. Michael Young grounded out to Desmond his only time up. In the dirt. Michael was 0 for 11 the last time these two teams faced each other in that 3-game series. We mentioned he's coming off a pretty good road trip. He led off most of the road, well, the first half of the road trip. Hits that one to center field. He golfed it. Going back on it is Colbert. Is back to the track, to the wall, reaches up, and it's off the base of the wall. Young's around second, thinking three. He's on his way, and he'll get there sliding. A one-out triple. And that's his third triple of the year.
Talk about the great speed that Colbert has, and he looked like he had a chance in the world to get to that ball. And he closed on it quickly. Michael Young really nails it. Things down in the zone, as Tom said, looked like he golfed it. Look at the speed on this guy. Takes one more look at the wall and then does a Randy Reddy. That's what he used to do when he was with the Phillies. Do a Spider-Man thing. Up against the wall. Heck of a try. Thank goodness for the padding.
Thank goodness for the padding.
Really, because that could have. He really took it on. He was. I said he can really run fast, and he was going fast when he hit that.
Now Rollins has a chance to give the Phillies the lead with a runner over at third. Rollins grounded out to first in the first.
Well, it gets you a run now if you do it to the middle of the diamond. Corners are up. Middle of the diamond. If you're Michael Young, Ryan Sandberg has told you, all right, the ball goes by the pitcher, go. If it goes to the corners, you have to read it on the velocity on whether or not you can score or not. And he's been getting thrown out a lot at bases. In other words, if it's a smash right at the corners, you don't go. There's another look. Look at that. He kept looking at the wall. I mean, he knew it was coming. He wasn't going to do a Bryce Harper.
Inside, 3-1 to Rollins.
Pitcher ought to really appreciate that effort.
Rollins takes ball 4, and the Phillies have first and third for Ryan Howard, who homered his first at bat. MLB.com at bat is the #1 source for live baseball everywhere you go. Available for your iPhone, iPad, iPad Mini, Android, and BlackBerry 10. At bat delivers Phillies baseball with live audio, pitch tracking, stats, news, highlights, and more. Text at bat to 31826 or visit Phillies.com for details. Howard hit a 430-foot home run. His first time up. They have the overshift on, and he takes outside. It's 1-0.
And here's the home run by Ryan Howard. Out over the plate, maybe one of those cutters he's been throwing, those sliders, came back over the middle of the plate, and bam, second decker. They have a second baseman really deep. Normally they'll come up a little more with a base runner to get a double play.
Swing and a miss, 1-1.
Rendon is a second baseman. And see how deep he is? Now, that's just saying they can't get a double play that way, but it's harder to. And if you don't get the double play, Phillies get a run out of it. So maybe they're not concerned about giving up a run here in the third inning as opposed to giving up a little easier hit to keep the inning going. Because if you're thinking double play, he's in further.
Rollins goes, pitch is grounded foul. J-Roll may have had that base stolen.
Oof. Yeah, really easy. Howard saw something he liked, but I don't know if it was a strike. I think he necessarily doesn't want to hit with 2 strikes, but now he is anyway.
Not to get greedy or anything like that, but it'd be an even better birthday if he has 2 home runs.
Sure, and this would be a 3-runner.
Maybe he blew out the candles and wished for another home run.
What's wrong with all that?
Rollins goes, pitch is taken outside, no throw. Stole a base number 7.
Good job by Jimmy. Picked a good pitch to run on. As it turns out, it was a changeup split probably for this guy. And he got a great jump. He read Herron perfectly. He was slow to the plate. And then Suzuki. I don't know what I'm going to do with this. I'm not going to throw it, that's for sure.
Howard lays off 3-2.
He keeps throwing that thing to him. That's 2 in a row. They're splitters, I guess. They're changeups. You can see them going down and away.
Trying to add to his total with this at bat. He has 2 runners in scoring position with 1 out. And a 3-2. Low, ball 4, and the bases are loaded for Dominic Brown. Back-to-back walks issued by Herron.
And he kept throwing that thing to him, that changeup of his. And Ryan Howard didn't bite. And that's one of the signs that we were talking about earlier about Charlie on his radio show. That
on Ryan Howard's radio show?
No, on Charlie's radio show. That he's swinging better. And when a hitter's swinging better, Tommy, he doesn't chase those pitches.
Good point.
If you're not swinging real well, you're swinging all that stuff in the dirt.
Dominic fly to center his first time up. And he hits that one off his foot.
So anxious with men on base right now. And not there's anything wrong with swinging at the first pitch with men on base. It can be fine. But he's been making outs with men on base or hitting maybe a sacrifice fly and a weak one. This is another. Herron keeps coming in on these guys, and he goes off his knee with that one. He's going to hit a slam someday. Sarge says before a putt, why not me? Well, why not now? Anxious. Just right now does not have that feel that he had before, you know, where he would wait, look for pitches in the zone, run deep counts. Right now he's answering.
He's also in a little bit of pain as he's walking around.
Sure. But he looks like a young hitter again.
Here's the 0-2 pitch to Brown. Outside, 1-2.
See him wincing there. That definitely hurt that ball off his knee. Just not seeing the ball. And now he limps back to the dugout, so he may have some problem. May have a problem there.
Second strikeout for Herron. And with 2 outs, here comes Delman Young.
Matt Sheridan going to follow him down the steps. It looks like Phil's training.
Delman hits it the opposite way. Worth on the run, comes over, dives. He can't get it. This may clear the bases. 2-run score. They're waving Howard home. Now they stop him. The throw goes to third. It's high, and he is out at third base. The Phillies take the lead. It's a 2-run double for Delman Young. It's a 3-1 ball game, but a break for the Nationals as Howard is thrown out after an abrupt stop over third. products that will mop up the worst of your cleaning problems. And WB Mason delivers same day, so your worst messes will be yesterday's news. Dominic Brown took a little extra time before he came out to left field. He fouled a ball off his leg. He was underneath the stadium when this play took place. Jason Worth misses the ball off the bat of Delman Young.
Yep, almost getting that.
But then is able to recover.
Well, you can take a look, too, though, and undecided on exactly where he wanted to go. High throw. Got him as he was going back to third. You can take a look and see exactly where he is. Now, you see where he is, and then all of a sudden now he's telling him to get back. It's too late. Pretty hard for Ryan Howard to just stop kind of on a dime. Might as well let him go. Maybe Ryan Sandberg a little gun shy there. 3 times there. We had Michael Young thrown out at the home plate.
Marrero hits one to left center field. Playable for Ben Revere at the track. One out here in the top of the 4th.
You know, he's always been an aggressive base runner, Ryan Sandberg, when he played and also there as a coach. Again, it's not the first time that we've seen runners thrown out, but like to be aggressive, and especially when you're winning. I don't think it's anything wrong with that. What do you think about that play?
I thought he should have stopped him at third.
Right away?
Earlier, yeah, because, you know, and I know he was reading it.
Yeah.
But it's so difficult to make that decision. You have to make it so quick.
Yeah, the only way I say that with 2 outs, you know, and the ball going down the line there, you don't have to look to see whether or not that ball is caught or not. So therefore, you can just keep on going and not even have to look at it. But again, you know, knowing the speed of the runners has a lot to do with it too.
Now, I think if Ryan kept going, he would have been out at the plate because Rendon got the ball quickly. I think Worth recovered nicely. And the other part of it too is Francis's been swinging a better bat, and he was on deck. But I would rather be aggressive than conservative, honestly, Sarge.
Yeah, well, you raised 2 good points again with Francis being hot, but any time you can get one more run, especially the way things are going, boy, you want to be able to get it.
But would you agree? I mean, I think he would have been out at the plate if he kept on going.
Oh, he's dead at the plate. If it's a good throw, yeah, you're right, with everything being equal, but wasn't a good throw at third and scrambling back, they got him.
Yeah, Zimmerman made a great play to go high in the air to get that ball. Suzuki is aboard for the 2nd time. He's got a single and a double now. A 1-out extra base hit, and Lombardozzi's coming up. Lombardozzi had a single to left his first time up. One of 5 hits given up by Lannon so far. No appeal and no swing, says Ted Barrett.
You like that. Lannon is coming inside. Bread and butter, however, it's that change-up that would be away. Kind of pitch inside just to keep the hitters honest. Lannon is a slow worker. Very deliberate.
Well, after the Nationals head out of town, the Mets will come to town for a 3-game series Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Sunday, all fans 14 and under will receive the IBEW Local 98 Cliff Lee t-shirt. There you see the t-shirt. You can order tickets for that 3-game series by going to Phillies.com. Tapper foul. It's 1-1. May have gotten a piece of Quintero's hand, which we saw that the other day. He got a foul ball off that hand.
Well, you're always getting foul tips off your hand, off your arm, same as the umpires.
Opposite way, that's a fair ball down the right field line. The ball is going slowly along the line, so Suzuki's going to score, and Lombardozzi's going to pull into second with an RBI double. So the Nationals get a run back after the Phillies scored twice in their half of the third. Back-to-back doubles. A 3-2 game.
Well, nothing anyone can do. That ball's down there. Thought Young doing a good job there because that ball could just hug and go all the way down. Did have some hook on to it, however. And that's, again, an automatic double for most players when it goes down any of those lines.
Well, now Herron, who bunted into a fielder's choice his first time. Breaks his bat, loops one towards center. Revere is there, and there are 2 outs. Phillies bullpen starting to stretch a little bit. Savory's walking around. Michael Stutz is working with looks like a weighted ball. We mentioned that there's no real pitch count for Lannon. Charlie Manuel did say today, 70, 80 pitches, but it would also depend on how he got to that number.
Yeah, meaning on how he's pitching, whether or not he's struggling, or whether or not he would be in control of his pitches. Good curveball.
Pretty high pitch count with 2 outs here in the 4th.
Not many easy innings.
Runner goes, the 0-2. Inside, no throw. Michael Young wasn't covering third. So stolen base for Lombardozzi, his first of the year.
That'll vary your motion if you don't want guys stealing a base. A lot of times, too, pitchers don't pay much attention when it's 2 outs.
And he gets him on a curveball. 4th strikeout for Lannon. Nationals do get a run on the RBI double by Lombardozzi. We played 3 1/2. The Phillies hanging on to a 1-run lead over the Nationals. Honda. Visit your Honda dealer today for great deals. Only a Honda is a Honda. By Citizens Bank, where good banking is good citizenship. Is it a time you experience good banking? And by Mazda, we believe if it's not worth driving, it's not worth building. Phillies lead at 3-2. It's a Hatfield Philly Frank Dollar Dog night here at the ballpark. And there are a lot of folks not only taking in their dogs, but also taking in this game. It's a great crowd.
Little hot dog hat.
Yeah, there are a few people in the stands we've seen with the hot dog hats. Kevin Franzen leads it off here in the bottom of the fourth. Franzen singled his first time up.
Well, he just gives you solid at bats every time he's there at the plate. One of those hitters that will make an adjustment. Doesn't matter how hard you throw or slow. Franzen usually have pretty good mechanics.
Takes outside, 1-1. Freddie Galvis was 3 for 31 on the road trip. Part of the reason why Franzen's playing tonight. He's hit in 5 straight. That one was down in the hands. And Lombardozzi tracks it down for the first out. That'll bring Humberto Quintero to the plate. Each time we come home, particularly after a long road trip, Ruben Amaro usually addresses the media. And Murph, he addressed a number of different topics this afternoon.
Well, he certainly did, Tom. You mentioned Charlie had a long conversation with reporters. So did Ruben Amaro, and it was a very candid conversation about the state of the team. He said right now he gives the team kind of an incomplete. He said, obviously they're not out of it. He doesn't believe they're out of it, but they have not played good baseball. He knows they can play better baseball. He was asked if he thought his team was a World Series contender right now, and he said right now, no. He said, but I do think if they play better baseball, then they could be. So, he said a couple of times that he would like to see certain players maybe look in the mirror and maybe change an approach or two, maybe try something different. And he wants some other guys to, go out there and have some fun and stop pressing as well. So, he realizes this team has flaws, but as we talked about on the road trip, he's also looking around the league, and he said other than St. Louis, he doesn't see a team out there that's really starting to run away with anything. So he knows that his team is in it, but if they're going to be contenders, they're certainly going to have to play better than they have up to this point of the season.
Yeah, I thought the look in the mirror comment that he made was good, because he said it about the veterans who have to look in the mirror and make adjustments, and he said it about the youngsters. They have to look in the mirror and relax.
Yeah. Well, when you're looking at the averages and the production, this shoe fits just about every single person. Even Dominic now. I mean, he started off hot. The name of the game is really consistency. I thought, though, the 2 at-bats there where we had Jimmy Rollins walking along with Ryan Howard, recognize when pitchers don't want to throw to you. And those are some of the things that I'm sure Ruben is talking about. Hey, look at yourself and do what it takes in order for that team to be able to win. Try and contribute some kind of way.
And he was also, guys, asked about the comments of Cliff Lee and Cole Hamels over the last couple of days, really showing their frustration with the way the team has played. And he said, yeah, and he was fine with that, because he said, that's the way I feel too. And he said, that's the way he thinks all his players should feel right now.
That ball is bobbled by Zimmerman, then picked up. He throws high to first, and the tag by Marrero. Boy, a lot had to happen for that second out to be recorded. Credit Zimmerman not panicking. We credit Marrero for being able to handle the first base bag.
Well, he's used to this, being able to throw on the run, even though it's a high throw. Aaron almost got that right in the lips there. Take a look at it again as he gets that ball. He keeps it in front of him, what he's supposed to do. Aaron gets down. One of the reasons it was up high. What a nice little tag, however.
Throws have been an issue for Ryan Zimmerman, but when he doesn't have to think and he can charge like that, as crazy as that sounds, he doesn't have as many issues. 0-2 to John Lannon with 2 outs here in the fourth. Lannon popped out to Zimmerman in foul territory.
That's what you like, making him throw more pitches. The more pitches he throws, the more apt maybe you end up getting a good pitch to hit. Another one of those interesting hot dog hats there, Tom.
Swing and a miss. He'll have to take that hat off, wipe his brow as we get ready to go to the 5th inning. Phillies are retired in order here in the fourth. On to the fifth we go. Phillies lead it by 1. Explains his ability to play all over the field and how TV sitcoms helped him. Huh? Plus, Don Brown reminisces about his major league debut. Watch a new episode of Phillies Clubhouse tonight at 11 right here on Comcast Sportsnet. Now, what Freddie Galvis was going to say is that TV sitcoms helped him understand the English language and, understand the lingo when he first came from Venezuela.
Oh, yeah.
What a beautiful night here at the ballpark. As Rendon takes outside, it's 1 ball and no strikes.
A lot harder than you think, coming to a country not speaking that language and then still trying to play baseball and to do well.
There are guys that have embraced it, and Freddie certainly has. I mean, it's very comfortable to talk to. On the outside corner to Rendon, 2-1. It'll be Rendon, Zimmerman, and Jason Wood, 2, 3, and 4. Ground ball to shortstop. Nice hop for Jimmy Rollins. And Ryan Zimmerman's coming up. A reminder from Budweiser, great times are waiting. Designated driver. Ryan Zimmerman has been hit by a pitch. He's also singled. On the outside corner, it's 0-1.
Zimmerman not hitting for a high average this year. Usually he hits for a lot better average. 271 right now. Not bad there on some of the other numbers, but this is a guy here that can hit in the 300s, and obviously with those injuries have kind of slowed him down some.
Well, this is a Nationals team as a whole that if you thought the Phillies were struggling offensively, and they are, the Nationals are hitting 233 as a team. Out in front, 1-2. Nationals are 13th in the league in hitting out of 15 National League teams. Only the Miami Marlins and the Mets have a worse team batting average. They're 14th in runs scored.
Well, that's a sure sign of not getting that runner in from third base. Really not being able to even get him over. Players have a tendency, they'll put pressure on themselves. I've always thought pressure's on the pitcher. Come up with a quality strike. No, if he's not throwing hard, you have no reason to rush out there. Good play by Rollins. It's almost automatic. for him when that ball is hit like that. Does that routine play as good as any.
Well, last year at this point, the Nationals were 40-28. Their team batting average wasn't much higher, but they did score more runs and had a few more home runs. But they are a team that's built on their pitching, and that's what gave them success last year.
Yeah, well, you're right about that. I'll tell you, though, when you're scoring runs, it does make it easier for your pitcher. But they have a lot of pressure on themselves just because they were picked to win. Well, the manager came out and said he thought that they were going to run away with it. The one thing that Davey couldn't count on, however, was the injuries that they've had. Bryce Harper, one of their obviously stars. He's hurt right now with a banged up knee.
Yeah, Harper had a little bit of a setback over the last few days. He had bursitis in his knee. Ryan Howard will give this a look, and it's just a few rows back, and it's now 2-2.
Now they don't know exactly what is quite wrong with it. I mean, it keeps swelling up on him every time he goes out and he starts to run, slide. The knee swells up on him.
Jason Worth lets it go by.
And they count on this kid really to get him going. He brings a lot of energy. Bryce Harper does to this ball club.
Breaking ball hit towards second. To his left, Franzen. And the side is retired. Nice job by Lennon. He's retired 5 in a row. He sets the Nationals down in order. He may be done after 5. We'll wait and see what happens at the top of the 6th. But first, the top of the order leads it off. Series against the Atlanta Braves. Tickets are still available for all 3 games. You can get some good seats too if you'd like by going to the Phillies website, phillies.com. You can check out all the information coming up on the promotional schedule here at Citizens Bank Park. Again, it's the Phillies and the Atlanta Braves, July 5th, 6th, and 7th. We go to the top of the order. Ben Revere's 0 for 2. He is struck out. He's lined out. Takes inside. It's 1-0.
Been one of those players, had a pretty good road trip. Really started hitting the ball with some authority, finding some holes.
Well, there goes one of those holes again, Sarge. He's hit in 8 consecutive games with that single. See, the Phillies can add on to their 1-run lead. They talk about his swing, trying to keep the hitch out a little bit.
And he's still doing it, but he's doing it a little bit quicker, you know, and getting back into that hitting position. See, there's a hitting position right there. It doesn't matter where you end up starting. You want to be able to, when that ball comes to the plate, be in the hitting position, and he was. One of the reasons, too, though, he's starting to get a few more hits and a lot louder that he's hitting some of the balls.
Well, since the 1st of May, he's hitting over 300. Since the 1st of May, it's 6 weeks now.
Yeah, and we keep forgetting, too, he's still a young player in terms of having a lot of at-bats in the major leagues, and he's going to get better.
He's one of those guys, Sarge, and I know Ruben talked about not putting pressure on yourself. I think he's one of those guys that he was talking about. But for the fate of the Phillies and the success of the Phillies, he needs to be a productive hitter.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. Although that comes with the territory here in this city playing sports. I mean, it's pressure if you're not doing well. It can be very, very good to you when things are going well for you.
2 balls, no strikes to Michael Young, who tripled and scored his last time up. There goes Revere. Pitch is taken for a strike. To throw to second, nowhere near in time. It goes to center field, and Revere tried to get up, but Rendon inadvertently was on top of him. And that's his 17th stolen base of the season.
Great running count, too, and an excellent jump for a change. He's off and going. Stole that base easy. By the time he was trying to get up, and you're right, wasn't able to go to third base. If he gets up right away, he would have been able to, but it's a good stolen base right there, sure.
Nice catch by that big guy.
Michael Young has an inside-out swing, which means that more than not, he hits that ball the other way. Gene Herron, he's been missing his targets. Way away, that ball he wanted more inside, that ball outside.
Ground ball left side. That won't get the runner over. Desmond picks it up, throws low, dug out by Marrero. One out here, and now Jimmy Rollins is coming up.
Well, not a productive at bat there for Michael Young. I tell you, he will not be happy with that at bat. The only way that Ben goes is if he actually makes it. Want to let Jimmy Rollins and Ryan Howard be able to hit.
Oh, 0-2 to Rollins as he takes a fastball for a strike. Red Revere single to start the inning, stole second.
Starts off an inning, you got to think you're gonna score, especially after he steals a base.
Rollins pops it up, shallow left center field. Desmond is out. He's calling everybody off. And again, Revere still out at second, but now 2 outs. And Ryan Howard's duel.
Well, it took him a while, finally did it. Boy, caught that ball going right down the middle. Finally being able to drive that ball. Boy, oh boy.
This one's the opposite way. It's going to slice out of play. 1-1 to Ryan Howard.
Well, I know that's got to make him feel good. And even in talking with him, well aware of not hitting a home run. You get asked that question and don't have to ask him because he's a power hitter and he knows when he hasn't hit one in a long time.
Well, he pulls that one into right field, a base hit. Revere's around third, heading home. The throw by Worth is cut off, and the Phillies take a 2-run lead. Two RBIs for Howard tonight. He's been on base 3 times.
Well, right guy there at second base to be able to score the run. That ball there hit like a bullet. He's starting to handle those balls that are a little bit away. Hit that ball so hard. Take a look at the throw by Jason. See there, Sammy telling him to stay right here.
Brown takes inside and low. It's 1-0. There's a strike. It's 1-1.
There's something. Dominic starting to swing it. Pitches that weren't strikes or that aren't strikes. He swings at strikes. You already know the damage that he can do. That's a good pitch.
Stutz is warming up, so Lannon's day is probably done after 5 innings and 92 pitches. Now, if you're Dominic Brown, you're thinking, all right, he's coming inside again, right?
Well, he's thrown him so many balls that have been inside, but Herring's got him to swing at some balls inside that have been off the plate. That's why he laid off of those 2 balls. I thought they were probably hittable.
They come inside again. That one just missed. It's 3-2. Howard will be off.
Right now, he'll be looking, I would think, there, Tom, for that fastball in. But again, he knows if he gets the ball out over the plate, he can drive the ball. So Herring might want him to hit his pitch, but look for fastball in.
There you go. Ball 4. And that puts runners on first and second. Now that's a good at bat from Dominic Brown.
No, those pitchers, they get you out in certain ways. They don't come right back there until you prove that you can hit the pitch.
He thought that was a strike just by his reaction. Herring, that is.
Thought it might have been down, a little bit, but good adjustment though by Dominic by not swinging at those balls that are inside like he did his last at bat.
Here's Delman Young, and it's 0-1. He tried to pull that pitch. Delman had a 2-run double the opposite way in the third. He also flied out to Worth. That was back in the second. Outside, 1-1.
Here's another one of those guys. Ruben wants him to pick it up a little bit. Yeah, these guys play like they're capable of playing. And again, the Braves are playing good, but they're not running away with it.
Desmond flips it to second to get Brown. Now the side is retired here in the 5th. The Phillies do score a run on a base hit from Ryan Howard. He has 2 RBIs, and we go to the 6th here in Philadelphia. Cliff Lee captured his 8th win of the season. He has put together his own 6-game win streak. And it's brought to you by Independence Blue Cross, changing the game. Well, Smiley's in the house because it's a Hatfield Philly Frank's Dollar Dog Night, and the Fanatic was taking no chances after his four-wheeler died before the ball game. He wasn't waiting for Smiley. And somehow wandered away from the hot dog shooting.
Oh, boy.
Hot dog shooter. Smiley's trying to get the crowd into the Fanatic flipping those dollar dogs into the crowd.
Oh, boy.
Thank goodness the hot dog shooter did not break down the way the ATV broke down before the ball game.
It would have been hard to carry that one.
It would have been very hard to carry.
Pick it up, and I thought maybe someone had taken the key, but apparently it just stopped working.
Just stopped working. Michael Stutz takes over for John Lannon, who went 5 innings tonight and allowed 6 hits and 2 runs, 1 walk and 4 strikeouts through 92 pitches. And Desmond leads it off, takes a strike. It's 0-1.
I thought he pitched pretty good in coming back, keeping some of the hitters off balance. His game, obviously not giving up a lot of runs. He only gave up 2.
Oh, and 2 now to Desmond.
Doesn't have to throw a strike here. That ball in the dirt, slider in the dirt, or a high fastball out of the zone.
Too good a pitch?
Yep. Yeah, you can see already, I mean, he is very anxious there at the plate. And when you see them like that, it's the time to be able to drop that little slide piece, breaking down and away.
There you go. That was the slider, but it was a non-strike out of his hands.
Yeah, he needs to throw that a little further. Kind of bounce that one in. What you want it to do is to look like that fastball. That's the way the slider does. And then at that last moment, the good ones would break right out of the zone.
One and 2 to Desmond. Desmond is grounded into a double play and flat out to center. Ground ball back to the mound. This Friday night, the Phillies will entertain the New York Mets, and here at the ballpark, it's an African American Heritage Celebration presented by the Sound of Philadelphia. Great music and dance. The presentation of the annual Gamble and Huff Community Service Award will be presented. And you can get your tickets for all 3 games, including that Friday night, at Phillies.com. Marrero's 0 for 2. Takes outside. Marrero's playing first base tonight, Sarge, because there was a lefty that started, and Adam LaRoche, as hot as he seemed when the Phillies were in D.C., he's cooled off again. He was cool for the first month of the season, warmed up, but now is cooled off again.
Yeah, again, too, though, you talk about the consistency last year, and one of the reasons he ended up getting the contract is that he was so consistent. Defensively, one of the better defensive first basemen in the league, but you got to show up offense without a doubt. Good pitch. I think those are some of the guys that Davey was kind of counting on to be able to carry this club. Long way to go.
1-2 pitch. A little low, and it's 2-2. Popped tripped him up. Quintero off with the mask, has room and makes the catch. Two outs, and here's Kurt Suzuki. So far, so good for Stutz. 9 pitches, 6 strikes. A pretty active arm.
Oh, that slider that he's throwing, the ball, the fastball, is just coming out of his hand with some explosion. So far, hitters haven't had good swings on him.
Michael Stutz's alma mater, Oregon State, playing in the College World Series. In an elimination game today, they beat up on Louisville 11-4, so they'll remain alive. Louisville has been eliminated out of the Big East. Out toward left field, playable for Dominic Brown. He's under it, and Michael Stutz has a 1-2-3, top of the 6th inning. 8 in a row retired by Phillies pitching. We move to the bottom of the 6th there in South Philadelphia. Phillies 4, the Nationals 2. Times are waiting. Grab some buds. Buy WB Mason. You can't go wrong when you buy right. And buy the Quality Plus Ford stores. Go further. That's turned out to be a nice night here in Philadelphia. Phillies lead at 4-2. There were some thunderstorms in the area, but they seem to have passed by, at least for the time being. So we get to enjoy the bottom of the 6th. Kevin Franzen will lead it off. It'll be Franzen, Quintero, and then the pitcher's spot. Michael Stutz threw a scoreless top of the 6th inning. Franzen's 1 for 2. He has singled. He's also flied to left. Outside with the first pitch. Herron begins the inning with 101 pitches. He's at 102. Inside, and it's 2-1. Sarge, we want to send best wishes out to John Collins, who is recovering and is getting better after an illness these last few days. We hope he is feeling a whole lot better.
Speedy recovery.
He's a big fan of the Sarge, by the way.
Well, let's hope he gets well even sooner then, huh?
So you can give him a hat or something?
Well, that. Get on back here and watch these fighting fields do their thing.
Here's the 2-2 to Franzen. Low, ball 3. There's Quintero.
That's what Franson does a lot. He almost just makes the pitcher throw him strikes because he takes a lot of the close balls. So he shoots a line drive there into the stands. Hope everyone is okay.
Line drive down the left field line. It is a foul ball. Took a peek down to see where Franzen was. He really had it run, so he must have seen that that ball was going to hook foul.
Yeah, he got out in front of this too, and he knew the ball was going to be fouled by plenty. Good reaction though, as he clears his hips on a ball that's coming inside.
Fouls another one off. This one over to the right side again.
That ball that comes on the inside part of the plate, you got to clear your hips if you're going to be able to get the good part of the bat on the ball.
There you go. He pulls it down the third base side. The throw by Zimmerman is in time. And one away. Let's check in with Murph. We showed that sculpture earlier, that sand sculpture during the open. Murph, fill us in. What's going on with that?
Well, it is pretty cool, isn't it? Just inside the left field gate here at Citizens Bank Park, that huge Fanatic sandcastle. Now get this, guys. It took thousands of pounds of sand to create it. It is 10 foot high, 8 foot wide. It was created by Atlantic City native John Gowdy, and it's all to kind of promote the World Championship of Sand Sculpting, which is happening right now in Atlantic City through June 30th down on Missouri Avenue and the beach. Anyone can go there. It's a free event to take a look at these sculptures, so you can go do AC, and just really kind of cool. And that sand sculpture that we're showing right now will be here at the ballpark through this entire homestand, so people can come out and see it there.
Anybody that's gone down to the Jersey Shore, we've all tried to build something out of the sand, but we can never, ever build something like that. That is an art form right there. Jason Worth takes care of Quintero. 2 outs. Stutz is going to bat.
Well, obviously, Charlie likes the way that Stutz is throwing. Sure, if there were a runner in scoring position, or maybe runners on, that it wasn't a bunting situation, he might elect to go on and pinch hit for him.
Stutz takes a strike. It's 0-1. By the way, there's a lot going on down in Atlantic City throughout the course of the summer. August 29th, we'll have a viewing party, get a chance to watch the Phillies and the Mets game down in Atlantic City. Not only that, but welcome back Miss America. Contestants come to the ballpark on the 6th of September as Stutz sends one out toward right field, and Jason Worth makes the catch. And the Phillies are retired in order here in the bottom of the 6th. We'll have a lot more about Do AC in the coming weeks. Make sure you check it out at Phillies.com.
sorts of stuff going on here tonight. As we look at our Honda dealers game, so we got it in the booth, the stands, on the field. Phil's with a 4-2 lead. Jason Worth in an RBI hit. Dan Herron threw 6, giving up 4 earned runs. Ryan Howard, a solo home run, his 8th of the year. He's also knocked in a run with a hit. And John Lannon, a good solid 5 in his return for the Phillies. Has turned it over to Michael Stutz, who's pitched 1 scoreless inning, trying to do another one.
Yeah, and folks are wondering why Lannon was lifted after 5. We mentioned that they weren't sure what his pitch count was going to be, but he is, in their estimation, Charlie Manuel's estimation, and Rich Doobie, 1 rehab start shorter than what they wanted to have him do. But they felt that there was a necessity to get him out there on a major league mound, so they figured they would take what they could get tonight.
Yeah, they got 5 good innings from him. He's in a little bit of jams, but John Lannon always has the ability to throw a ground ball at the right time. He was able to do that, among other things, tonight.
Bastardo's warming up at the pen. Chad Tracy's out in the on-deck circle to pinch hit for Herron. He's a left-handed batter. Lombardozzi, a half-hearted swing. It's 1-1.
Hey, you wonder if Bastardo's going to come in no matter what, or only if this batter, Lombardozzi, gets on and Tracy represents a tying run. We'll see.
Just missed inside, 2-1. There's the veteran Chad Tracy. Back toward the middle. Rollins was shaded that way. One away here in the 7th. These lucky fans are tonight's Citizens 7. They will each receive a prize pack courtesy of Citizens Bank. Citizens Bank with the most 7-day branches in the Philadelphia area. To find a branch near you, visit Citizens Bank. Just as you said, Wheels, they'll leave Stutz in to face Chad Tracy. He's not the tying run.
Right. They may have gone to Bastardo, Tom, if he'd have gotten on, because he would have been the tying run then. But nope. And they only have 1 right-handed hitter on their bench tonight. They have 4 left-handed hitters.
Tracy lines it right at Ryan Howard. He hit it square, but there are 2 outs. 5 up, 5 down for Michael Stutz. And Denard Span is going to pinch hit for the Nationals.
There goes another one of the left-handed hitters.
I'm sorry, it's not Span. It's Roger Bernardino. Another left-handed hitter.
Well, he's another one.
So Davey Johnson doesn't empty his bench, but he uses a couple of pieces from it.
Well, he has a home run hitter potential on the bench in LaRoche. Still. Tracy there for that at bat.
So Bernardino will pinch hit for Cobernus. Davey Johnson told me a great story when we were down in D.C. about his arrival here in Philadelphia. You know, he was in Japan and the Phillies picked him up after he was in Japan. And he had a lot of other offers, but he told Paul Owens, then the general manager, he said, you know what, Pope, I'm going to come play in Philadelphia for you. And he talked about his salary. He was offered a lot more from other teams, and I think Pope was offering him maybe $50,000. And Davey said, you know, I'm worth $100,000. Pope said, if you show me you're worth $100,000, then I'll give it to you. And Davey hit over 300 his first season with the Phillies. I think it was 77.
Yep.
And he gave him his $100,000.
Sounds like Pope. He tell you something, odds are he'd do it if you earned it. Davey did have a tremendous year. Phillies had such a deep. I always thought that team may have been better than the 76 team. Even those 77, 78 teams are really deep.
2-1 pitch to Bernardino, swing and a miss, 2-2.
Great benches, and Davey Johnson being one of those guys that gave him a great bench.
Well, he said the next year he injured himself. He was playing a lot and injured himself. I think he injured his wrist or his thumb. He did something to his hand area and hit over 300 after the first month, then hurt himself, but didn't tell anybody and played through the pain. And then finally they put him on the disabled list. And He wound up being traded not too long after that. He's watched his team get set down 1-2-3 in 2 straight innings by Michael Stutz. Nice job by Stutz in relief of John Ladden. Phillies pitching has retired 11 in a row as we go to the bottom of the 7th. Trivia quiz answer. All right, Wheels, here's the question one more time. Bob Boone won 7 Gold Gloves in his career. Which 2 catchers won more than 7?
Well, I got to go with the best catcher I ever saw. It was Johnny Bench.
Johnny Bench is correct. He won 10 Gold Gloves, Wheels.
Then you got guys like Fisk. You have Benito Santiago. You got Pudge. Give me a hint.
You got one of them is in those 3.
Is that right?
Yeah. That's not really that much of a hint, but you're on the right path, Wheels.
Did he play in this league?
He did.
Well, Fisk never played in this league.
Did not.
All right, I'll go with Pudge.
Pudge is correct.
Thanks for the hint.
In fact, he won 13 Gold Gloves.
He won more than Bench, huh?
Yeah.
Johnny Bench. Oh, was he good?
Ben Revere leads it off for the Phillies. And the new pitcher is Ian Kroll, the left-hander. Bernardino stays in the game to play center field for the Nationals.
Not that Pudge wasn't good.
Oh, 0-2 pitch to Revere. Inside 1-2. Chad Tracy's over at first base. There's Bernardino. Ground ball back to the mound, scooped up by Kroll. Sixth ball game for Kroll. He has yet to allow a run. Got those strikeouts, 8 strikeouts in 5 1/3.
Yeah, they've revamped. It wasn't that long ago the Phillies saw the Nationals. They have a few new arms out there in that bullpen.
Kroll was acquired in the trade that sent Mike Morse eventually to the Seattle Mariners. Michael Young takes inside. Young is 1 for 3. He's grounded out to shortstop 2 times, and he tripled. Down the right field line, that'll land in the seats. Out of play. down the right field line. Pretty good battle going on here between Kroll and Michael Young. Phillies in the top of the 8th inning. Looks like they'll have Mike Adams, who is throwing in the pen, take over for Stutes. What a job Stutes did today.
Great job. When your starter goes 5, and Tom already went through the reasons why they feel Landon is a piece that bat flies off, that Landon only went to 5 and did his job. Well, then you have to fill in. You still have to get 12 outs. Well, you get a guy to go a 6th and a 7th inning for you and scoreless and nobody even get on base. Tremendous job.
Coming up on Sports Night, highlights and analysis of this ball game. Plus, Neil Hartman wraps up the U.S. Open at Marion Golf Club. Philly fans, get all the news you need to know. Chevy Malibu Sports Night at the post-game live only on Comcast Sports Network.
22 pitches for Michael Stutes in those 2 innings. 6 up and 6 down.
Out to center field. Bernardino got turned around a little bit, but he's able to react and make the catch. And there are 2 outs here in the bottom of the 7th.
And what happened with him there is he started to get turned around a little bit. He never turned completely around. And when they turn completely around, that normally is a problem for an outfielder. Kept trying to stay sideways on it the whole time. Watch this ball sit. Now he's thinking it may slice back, so he starts to turn his back, but you never really saw his whole number. And when you see their whole number and then they just keep going, trouble.
The Phillies began play tonight 8.5 games behind the Braves and 2 behind the Nationals for 2nd place. 8.5 behind the Braves for 1st. The Braves and the Mets continue to be in a rain delay in Atlanta. That rain delay is 2 hours old. Over to first, Chad Tracy will trot to the bag, and it's a 1-2-3 7th inning. Phillies go down in order. 7 in a row retired by Nationals pitching. On to the 8th inning we go, with the Phillies hanging on to a 2-run lead. At Dodge.com or your local dealer today. By Xfinity, the official HD triple play provider of your Phillies. By Thomas Jefferson University Hospitals. Call 1-800-JEFF now for an appointment. And by Nissan. Choose Nissan today for great offers on our most innovative lineup ever. Shop at ChooseNissan.com. On to the 8th inning we go. Mike Adams will take over for the Phillies after 2 stellar innings of relief by Michael Stutes. John Lannon started with the first 5. Stutes then went 2. And now with the Phillies leading at 4-2, they make some other changes. There's Adams' numbers in 26 games. He's pitched pretty well these last 2 outings. Michael Stutz, if the Phillies win this ballgame, is kind of an unsung hero.
Yeah, they really appreciate what he did in that bench. Manager, pitching coach, teammates doing a great job. Ground ball after ground ball. That one slowed up a little bit by the mound. And then Bernardino off the bench as a pinch hitter with a fly ball to Dominic Brown. That's his second inning of work. 6 up, 6 down, 22 pitches.
Here's Rendon to lead it off for the Nationals. It'll be Rendon, Zimmerman, and Worth against Mike Adams. First pitch off the outer edge. It's 1-0. We'll let you know about the changes the Phillies have made behind Mike Adams.
Yeah, the idea of trying to use some guys for offense to get a lead and go for your defense, and that's what they did tonight.
Freddie Galvis takes over at second base. Galvis will hit 7th. And John Mayberry takes over in right. He'll hit 6th. Over to third, Michael Young, who's been busy tonight. Ryan Zimmerman's coming up, and it's time for the Major League Notebook. Murph?
All right, thank you very much, T-Mac. Brought to you by Gwynedd Mercy College, of course. The National League All-Star voting update came out late last night. Buster Posey and Yadier Molina are leading right now for the National League top vote getter. So both of those catchers leading the way. As far as Phillies, Chase Utley still in 4th place as the second baseman, and Dominic Brown now 14th out of all outfielders in the National League. Now he's just moved up to 13th. I think he just got a vote over here. There you go. We got our own PR department going on. And guys, no surprise to anyone who watched the games this past week. Carlos Gonzalez named National League Player of the Week. He went 10 for 21 with 3 home runs, 2 doubles, and a triple during that stretch. So 10 for 21. Carlos Gonzalez, your National League Player of the Week.
I agree with you, Murph. No surprise whatsoever after what he did this weekend against the Phillies.
Well, the Phillies made their contribution to that.
Line drive, base hit to center field for Zimmerman. Boy, it kept on pulling away, hooking away from Ben Revere. And Zimmerman will get to second.
Thanks, boss.
With a 1-out single.
Well, it's fast out there in that outfield. As you said, it was hooking a little bit, and then it hit the grass and scooted. Zimmerman is not fast, but he hustles, and he probably would have been at second base even if Revere could have cut that off, because he was going to take about 4 steps to his right to slow up, and then he doesn't throw very well. So it's not like that ball got out there and took the double play away because he couldn't get to it. He's going to have a double anyway, because Zimmerman is a guy that will bust it out of the batter's box. Looks like he's a little banged up out at second base right now, or else I don't know what it is. He had his hands on his knees for a while.
Toyota Major League scoreboard. The Reds on top of the Pirates 2-1. That game's gone to the top of the 8th inning. Russell Martin does have a double and an RBI for the Pirates in that game. Reds lead the Pirates by half game for second place. Both are, this season ended today, would be the wild card representatives.
Hey, just saw Bastardo up there. In their lineup right now, you have Worth, Desmond, then the pitcher spot with LaRoche available. So that's why Bastardo is up right now for LaRoche.
There's LaRoche on the bottom stairs. Bottom step, I should say. 1-1 pitch. Must have been high and in. And it's 2-1. Ted Barrett says Jason Worth offered at it, and it's 2-2.
That was close.
I thought it was a strike anyway, even if he didn't offer it.
Yeah, he doesn't call it a strike, and does he go? Nope. So he's got 1 there. Oh. That was close. A little bit away, huh?
It's outside. Just a little bit. It was running back. It just didn't get all the way back. Mike DeBureau, the home plate umpire tonight. There goes the runner from second. Ground ball to shortstop. Rollins is there. Zimmerman's peeking. And a throw to first in time.
Well, that's great they get him out on that pitch. Because if that's ball 3, Zimmerman's at third base. He'd play the infield back. And if he hits that ball after that, they get a run out of it. But he really made a good pitch on Worth, who stayed away from him a lot in that at bat. And then he looked like he ran something on his hands. Worth really gets jammed on this. Oh yeah, really ran back. And he gets jammed, hits a weak ground ball.
Swing and a miss, 0-1.
Desmond's not trying for a single on that pitch. He wants to tie this thing. They see that swing. The odds are they're going to want to stay away from him because he opened up in a hurry to try and pull that ball and hit it out of the ballpark. That's why pitchers and catchers will tell you they watch a guy swing. There they go away.
Back toward the middle, a base hit. So the Nationals will get a run back here in the 8th inning.
Got them right in the middle.
RBI single for Ian Desmond. And Adam LaRoche is coming up to pinch hit.
That's why you would think they had Bastardo up.
Here comes Charlie. It looks like he is going to bring in the left-hander to face the lefty, Adam LaRoche. Well, Bastardo pitched well in Colorado in his last outing. Hasn't been as consistent as the Phillies would like, but going to need some consistency here against the left-hander Adam LaRoche. So he signals to the pen. Here comes Antonio Bastardo. The Phillies lead is down to 1 run. This is an AT&T call to the bullpen here at Citizens Bank Park. It's a 4-3 lead in favor of the Phillies. A ball game, but it's also a great place to host your next special event. There are many places that you can host that event, including the Diamond Club, the Hall of Fame Club, and the Executive Dining Room. Free parking, on-site catering, Fanatic visits, and ballpark tours are just a few of the extras available. Go to Phillies.com/special events or call 215-218-5100 for more information. Phillies led it by 2 when the inning began. Now it's a 1-run game. Mike Adams is done. Here comes Antonio Bastardo with the left-hander Adam LaRoche due to bat with a runner at first. LaRoche will pinch hit hitting only .237 on the year. He has 10 home runs and 30 runs batted in. Hitless in 2 previous at-bats against Bastardo.
2 strikeouts and a walk. He could beat you. He can beat you left and left center. This guy has great power everywhere, but his pull power is outstanding. You would think they would want to stay away from him. They're going to play in a no doubles, don't hit it over your head defense in the outfield. Ryan Howard on the line because he's holding the runner on. Desmond 7 out of 9 when he goes. Bastardo very slow to the plate, so they give a throw over there just to keep Desmond aware that they're looking at him.
0-2. Now that went back. You didn't like that pitch, Wills?
Oh, man. Stay away from this guy. Look where this is. Right down Broadway. Slide ball in the dirt. Be real sweet, I would think. Might chase it now. Fastball down the middle, no.
Desmond creeps off the bag at first. 0-2 pitch. Tried the slider. And it's 1-2.
Good job by LaRoche not to swing there.
Ground ball back towards second base. Galvis is there, and he has time to throw out LaRoche. The side is retired. Throwing the breaking pitch for the second straight time. And Bastardo is able to get the lefty he needs here in the 8th. The Nationals do score a run. We go to the bottom of the 8th, and Ryan Howard will lead it off. Phillies lead it by 1, 4-3 as they kick off this 6-game homestand with 3 against the Washington Nationals. Ryan Howard is set to lead it off. Wheels, we heard this past weekend that Stan Lopata, who was part of the Whiz Kids back in 1950, passed away this past weekend.
Well, great guy. Lucky enough to get to know him in this part of the business, and loved him as a player. Hit out of this crazy crouch like you couldn't believe that nobody else could ever do. Had one really big year. A couple of years he was an all-star. Had one big year with homers. Nickname was Lop. And everybody loves Stan Lopata, Tom. They got to know him. And he was a fun player to watch and just really a great guy.
You know, he went on to play for the Milwaukee Braves after he played for the Phillies, but he did come back and live in the Philadelphia area following his baseball career.
We had him in the early years of what we used to call Dream Week, which is now Fantasy Camp. Stan will come to that. And guys love being around him. He just had a great personality and a big, gentle guy. And well, he could hit some long homers out of a crouch. They have an old baseball card you'll see once in a while him hitting out of it, and it's something you wouldn't have tried to teach anybody.
Well, I think they showed that same baseball card tonight.
Oh, did they?
When they honored his memory.
Yeah, it's hard to explain how the knee bend, the crouch that he was really in when he would hit, but it worked for him.
Two-time All-Star, and he finished with 116 career home runs. Tyler Clippard takes over for the Nationals here in the bottom of the 8th. He'll face Ryan Howard. Howard is homered. He's also driven in a run with a base hit, and he takes a breaking ball for a strike. It's 0-1.
That's why they can use Clippard against left-handed hitters, and they've always been able to, because he'll flop a curveball up once in a while as he did there, but his changeup's tremendous and can get left-handed hitters out. And he has a 90-plus fastball. 30 strikeouts, 28 innings.
Inside, 1-1. There's the 90-plus fastball.
Yeah, he comes right over the top, too, with his pitches. And that's why that changeup is so deceptive, because he comes right out of the same slot with it, 10 mile an hour slower. Like that. That must be brutal to try again. His arm speed is so good with it.
Tried it again. That one faded outside. It's 2-2.
That was 81. The other one was 82, and his fastball's 93. 10 mile, 11 mile. That's really a perfect speed change.
Howard's home run earlier today, and for every home run the Phillies hit this year, one tree will be planted by the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society as part of Home Runs for Trees, a partnership between the Phillies, PHS, and Aramark. Home Runs for Trees is part of Plant 1 Million, a project to restore the region's tree coverage. For more info, visit phillies.com/red goes green. The 2-2 pitch to Howard, and he lifts it down the left field line. It's slicing toward the crowd and will go a couple rows back. The little kid with a glove thought he had a chance. So did the big kid with the glove.
He acted like he caught it.
But she was able to get it.
Let me see it. Oh, the phones will be ringing in a minute.
And a liner towards center field. And it's the third hit of the night for Ryan Howard.
Changeup was up a little bit that time. He did a really good job of staying back on it, hit it.
Papelbon is warming up. Phillies would love to get him a couple more runs.
Watch him stay back. Yeah, his weight balance is really good right now. And when he can stay back, you can't hit a changeup if you don't stay back, because you're going to be out front. And that was up a little bit. Good swing on that.
There's Papelbon.
A little more to work with. That'd be nice. Big hole on the right side for Dominic Brown. Well, it'd be tough to get Howard to third when you think about Worth out there and the way Ryan can't run real well.
And he pulls it to the right side, of base hit. Howard will stop at second.
Yeah, there it is. A lot of guys you can get them to third on that play, but not going to be able to do that.
We're going to have Michael Martinez come and pinch run for Ryan Howard.
He's really hobbling right now.
Well, he's hobbling because of the knee, but he's also hobbling because of that ball that he fouled off his leg.
Yep, right before he hit the home run.
Got to give it to him, man. He does play hurt.
He does.
There are guys that ask out of the lineup a lot of times when they are nicked up around baseball.
There are some players that need vacations during the year. He's not one of them.
No. Mayberry up for the first time. He came out to play right field for Delman Young, who was 1 for 3 with 2 RBIs. Delman's double was a big part of the success for the Phillies.
No bunt, you wouldn't think. You have the lead. Two reasons you have the lead, and the guy you have on deck's not an RBI guy necessarily, and Freddie Galvis. Now, if he hits into a double play, it looks bad. But they're going to take their chances that John Mayberry can drive the ball here and make something happen, as opposed to bunting with a guy like him. And who knows if he can even get a bunt down. He might just totally waste the at bat. Part of the thing when you talk about bunting, and who's coming up next? Galvis and then Quintero. So you think you have a better chance with Mayberry to do something for you. He may not, but they're going to take that chance.
Keeps throwing his fastballs. He remains 0-2. For years, StubHub has been the place to find great Phillies tickets. And this season, you can get more with your tickets thanks to StubHub Fan Rewards. So get to StubHub and grab your seats today.
Twelve pitches by Tyler Clipper, 10 strikes to this point. He'll throw the changeup to right-handed batters because it's such a good pitch, but he's more inclined to throw it to left-handed hitters.
He's thrown a lot of fastballs to Mayberry.
Right, because of being a right-handed hitter. That's what I'm saying. He's also showed a curveball in this inning, which he'll use once in a while, a little slider, cutter. But he's basically fastball changeup.
Martinez at second base. Dominic Brown at first. It's 0-2 to Mayberry. Now time is called by Mayberry. Mayberry hits it back in front of us.
And a mad scramble ensues.
That gentleman right there in the blue shirt emerged from under the seat where he was battling around with that guy in the golf shirt. He has thrown one fastball after another. He hasn't thrown any kind of breaking pitch at all.
And that's what I'm saying. Fastball's one, changeups two with him. Slider, cutter, but or slider, curveball, but he doesn't like to throw them that much. Nope, he did then.
He throws the soft stuff there, the changeup.
Yeah, he threw the changeup that time after all those fastballs.
And now with one out, Freddie Galvis will hit for the first time. Corners come in just a little bit for Galvis, who's hitting .211 with 4 home runs. 2 triples on in Friday's ball game against the Rockies. And he takes a little high, 1-0.
Okay, you see the corners up, and they're back at double play depth in the middle of the diamond. Actually, a little bit behind double play depth because they don't want a ball to go through here and give up that extra that extra run that way.
Way out in front of that changeup, 1-2. Pitches so far for Clippard. He's one of the National League's best setup men a couple of years ago. Last year he was called on to do some closing for the Nationals. This year he's back to being a setup guy. Galvis pops it up, and Ian Desmond, the shortstop, will settle under it. The infield fly rule is called, so the batter is automatically out. Now 2 outs and still runners on first and second. Phillies got back-to-back singles by Howard and Dominic Brown to start this inning, but those guys have not been able to move from their bags.
Have the lead right now, so they're not going to hit for Quintero with 2 outs to try and get another run because you already have the lead.
They have been using the route late in games, putting somebody like, let's say, Lance Nix, or who's in the on-deck circle right now.
When they decide to hit for Quintero, basically to catch up or take a lead. But in this case, they have it, so they don't have to necessarily get another run here, even though it'd be nice. And they'll save Nix if Quintero can keep the inning alive.
Well, Quintero is 1 for 3
to hit for the pitcher.
Popped him up. Foul territory, right side. Tracy running over. It's in play. Oh, no, it's back a row. Sorry. Let's take a look at our Hyundai defensive play of the game. And this one is where Ryan Zimmerman went over toward the dugout and was able to keep his bearings.
It's a guy who is athletic, knows the rules, and is able to do both and make a terrific play right there. Catch it before he starts into the dugout. Good call over there, and that's our Hyundai defensive play of the game.
Brought to you by your local Hyundai dealers. Oh, and 2 to Quintero. High and outside, 1-2. Martinez came on a pinch run for Howard. He's at second. Dominic Brown at first. One and 2 to Quintero. Oh, it hit him right on the hand, and the bases are loaded.
Quintero's the kind of guy who dives into everything. And he dove right into a pitch running in on him, thinking something was going to be away there.
Got a little fire to him.
Yeah, that one hurt. Watch him dive the way he always does, and now it's too late. Here it comes, and he can't get out of the way. Another look at his hitting style is to go out, dive into pitches. Guy throws it into you. It's really hard to get out of the way sometimes.
So the bases are loaded with 2 outs here in the bottom of the 8th inning. Lance Nix will pinch hit for the Phillies.
Those catchers are they're used to getting hit like that.
Well, that hand has got beat up all night long. He got hit with a ball earlier behind the plate.
Right. The other day, got hit in the shoulder.
Nix got a changeup, but it's 0-1.
Yeah, Nix was on this team for a while, so they know that he's a dead red hitter.
His numbers as a pinch hitter this year. Had 2 home runs the first month of the regular season as a pinch hitter. And he lines one down the right field line, foul. And it's 0-2.
I don't think Clippard would even throw him a fastball in this at bat, but he does throw him one, but he makes sure it's in. See, they set up in, and Lance gets a really good swing at it, but he can't keep that ball fair. And now, change-up time.
This is a 27-pitch 8th inning for Clippard. No balls, 2 strikes. Bases loaded with 2 outs at the bottom of the 8th. And a foul tip, and Suzuki hangs on. He did get the changeup. Second strikeout of the inning for Clippard. So the Phillies leave him loaded, which means they'll leave the top of the 9th inning for Jonathan Papelbon with just a 1-run lead here in Philadelphia. Performance and the rest of the ball game. Only on Pure Auto Insurance in presents Phillies post-game live. Top of the 9th inning, the Phillies trying to take game 1 of this series after a terrible road trip in which they were 3-7 to fall 4 games under 500. John Lannon started. There he is sitting and watching. He went the first 5 innings for the Phillies. Then Michael Stutz, 2 solid innings. Adams, 2 third. Antonio Bastardo a third, and now it's up to Papelbon with 13 saves and 13 opportunities so far this season.
Now you see what they have going here. They have Suzuki, then Lombardozzi switch. Tracy's batting in the 9 hole, and they do have Denard Span on the bench, who, if they get a runner they would like to run for, they have somebody available to do just that.
Yeah, maybe this guy right here, if Suzuki gets on, they may pinch run for him.
Right, because then the last extra man would be Solano, their backup catcher.
So Papelbon's ready to go. And the first batter that he'll face, there's Denard Span, is Suzuki, who is 2 for 3. Throws him a breaking ball, and it's a strike. Suzuki is 3 for 8 lifetime against Papelbon. But he gets him to hit a fly ball to straightaway center field. Ben Revere coming in. And there's one away here in the 9th inning. Every time the Phillies retire the opposition 1-2-3, which they've done 3 times tonight. Comcast will make a contribution to Phillies charities. Phillies baseball is brought to you by Xfinity, your home for the most live sports, giving you all your favorite sports all year long. Well, Papelbon throwing that, I mean, it's a slider. It's more like a slurve. He has slowed up the rotation of that pitch to make it look more like a slurve.
It sure does. Had a great shot of that the other night in a super slow-mo where you had that cement mixer look to it like a curveball.
Lombardozzi is 2 for 3 with an RBI. Takes a fastball for strike 1. Lombardozzi has never faced Papelbon until now. In the dirt, 1 ball, 1 strike. That was a split. So now you can basically tell which pitches Papelbon is throwing. The slurve is in the 70s, the split is in the 80s, and the fastball's in the 90s.
Yeah, there's 3 good speed variations too to try and get hitters out if you keep it out of the zone.
Now the 1-1. Floated out towards center field. Revere got a good jump, and there are 2 outs. That was the splitter. 2 quick outs for Papelbon, and here comes Chad Tracy, who has faced him 3 times. He's 0 for 3 against him.
Chad Tracy's an open up, hips flying, try to tie the game hitter right now.
It's old news for Jason Worth to come back to Philadelphia in a Nationals uniform. 0-1 to Tracy.
There it was. There's that swing that you would expect from Tracy, who has power. He just opened up and is trying to hit a home run. But that doesn't mean that Papelbon will stay away from him.
To the count to Tracy. Now they're coming to their feet. 44,990. A sellout here at Citizens Bank Park. After a very rough road trip, the Phils are hoping to start this homestand in way better fashion. 0-2 to Chad Tracy. And the pitch from Papelbon. Fouled it away. 3 straight fastballs. That one was in a little bit more.
Yes, it was. He's amazing. He just stays. He makes up his mind. He's going to stay in there.
Tomorrow's pitcher, Cliff Lee, will be opposed by Ross Detweiler. For a second time, here's the 0-2 pitch. And a little dribbler foul. Just barely got a piece of the split finger fastball from Papelbon.
That's hard to believe he tipped that thing. There's John Lannon.
John Lannon's looking to pick up his first victory in a Phillies uniform.
There's a splitter. Good job by Tracy to somehow hit it. Excellent pitch by Papelbon.
Everybody's ready. The 0-2 again. In the air to right field. Towering shot. Mayberry's to the track, to the wall, and this game is tied. The first blown save of the season for Jonathan Papelbon. It's a 4-4 game.
Talk about when you come inside to a guy who's trying to hit the ball out of the ballpark, That pitch is down the middle and in. It was supposed to be high and out of the zone, but still gets too much of the plate and he hits it out of the ballpark.
Just inside the pole.
That's why a lot of relief pitchers will never throw anything middle in to guys with power who are trying to hit home runs in those spots. They'll stay away and say, beat me the other way. He's not like that.
Well, Chad Tracy was hitting just 138 before that home run. Phillies had the bases loaded in their half of the 8th inning. They had first and second with nobody out and didn't score. One ball, one strike.
Yeah, and he basically used up his bench, bullpen, everything. Because it looked like that was, he'd gotten the game, well, it didn't look like he'd gotten the game exactly where he wanted to, one strike left.
Ryan Howard's out of the
Sure.
game. At the knees, and it's 1-2. The last blown save from Papelbon has been really good this year. It was back in September of last year, September 2nd last year. Davey Johnson decided to keep Chad Tracy in the game instead of Adam LaRoche, too. And it paid off, at least at this moment. Swing and a miss. He got it with a 92-mile-an-hour fastball. His side is retired, but the Nationals have tied this ball game up on a home run by Chad Tracy, which means we go to the bottom of the 9th inning, all even at 4, with the top of the order set to lead things off for the Phillies. And our W. Mason deliveries of the game are a couple long balls. The first one came back in the 2nd inning with Ryan Howard against Dan Herron. And man, did he crush that one. 430 feet. They went into the 2nd deck and came back to the 1st level. Then in the 9th inning with 2 outs, Chad Tracy ties the game up with a home run that was certainly not as long as Ryan Howard's, but it did the same thing. It tied it up, and it's the first blown save of the year for Jonathan Papelbon. So now, as we go to the bottom of the 9th inning, after looking at our W. Mason deliveries of the game, the Phillies are hoping for another delivery against Fernando Abad, a left-hander out of the pen, who has settled down the left-hander role for the Nationals. You can see by those numbers. He'll face Ben Revere, Michael Young, Jimmy Rollins.
Try and win the game in the bottom of the 9th. And Chad Tracy came right up there in the first swing. You can see we talked about it, clearing his hips, trying to pull the ball and hit it out of the ballpark. He was looking for something middle in that hole at bat, somehow fouled that splitter off, and then got the pitch that he wanted. As you said, he didn't hit it that hard, but when the ball's middle in like that and you're swinging and your hips are open, you got a chance to hit it out of the ballpark when you're strong.
Well, Ben Revere starts it off. He's 1 for 4 tonight. Phillies led 3-1, 4-2. And the Nationals scored a run in the 8th and a run in the 9th and have tied it up at 4. But the Phillies can win it here in the bottom of the ninth. What pitch to Revere outside 2-0. Nationals have Storen throwing in the bullpen, the right-hander. Meanwhile, the Phillies have Diekman. Now it's 2-2. Here's Diekman. If we go to the 10th, they'll be in the game. And a line drive base hit to center field. Great job by Ben Revere. The winning run is aboard. 2 for 5. What do you do here for Michael Young?
Well, if you bunt him over, then you've got Jimmy Rollins will walk in, then the pitcher's spot comes up, and you have LaRue left. And then you go to Brown, possibly with 2 outs. So he swings the bat, I think.
See if Revere maybe tries to swipe second. Toss over to first. Revere does not have a big lead. Michael Young tonight has a triple and a run scored. He's 1 for 4.
Look, Abad's times, he does slide step, they say, in 111, 132, so you could run on him if he doesn't slide step.
Now, we've already seen Revere steal second base on Suzuki. Rollins has a stolen base today. There was no throw on that one. Suzuki is 5 for 42 throwing runners out trying to steal.
Did you guys think it was on him or on Herron?
I think it was a combination of both. But yeah, I do think it was more Herron hanging with that foot. Fly ball right center field. Playable for Berardino. And Revere goes back to first. Rollins is coming up. LaRue is out of the on deck circle.
That you want him to go here either. You know, if he goes and you walk Rollins, you get right back into what we talked about for 4 with LaRue and Brown left. He could even have a don't go right now.
He doesn't have an aggressive lead, partly because Abad has been thrown over there a handful of times.
Yeah, and he may not be going anywhere.
0-1 the count to Rollins. Outside, 1 ball and 1 strike.
He took that outfield back to no doubles defense when Young came up. You see how deep they are. With Revere, they were in because they figured he wasn't going to hit over their head no matter what.
There goes Revere, and the pitch is popped up. Behind home plate, Suzuki gives it a look, and it's out of play.
Well, he doesn't have a don't steal.
Rollins is hitless in 3 at-bats. He's walked tonight, and he fights the 1-2 pitch off. 95 miles an hour. It remains 1-2. Goes, and the pitch is lined to left field, a base hit. Revere's on his way to third. He'll get there easily. It'll be first and third with one man down. The winning run is 90 feet away.
Well, he's running on that play, as Tom said, and that gets him to third base because his outfielders are so deep. No way you normally could get to third base, obviously, with that thing set. But with a combination of running, look how deep they are. He takes one look, makes sure it's in play. And a ball hit that shallow, you can first to third because he picked it up right away and was running.
It's great to see them getting in motion here too, in so many different ways. It's all part of what Revere has brought, honestly, over the last couple of weeks. The fact that he's playing with more confidence, he's playing better, it just makes everything look a whole lot better.
Yeah, and that was not a bad time to go. Jimmy had already gotten down to count 1 and 2. If you do that early in the count, they're going to walk him. Put him on with the base open if you steal third, if you steal second. Well, they have to. I mean, why wouldn't they? With LaRue coming up now, is your only move, left, and then Dominic Brown after that.
Mike DeMuro breaks up the conversation. Steve McCatty, the pitching coach, coming out.
Now they have to bring their outfielders in, of course.
Now, Revere is probably the fastest guy in the Phillies lineup. So a fly ball, it doesn't have to be way back to score.
Right. But they have to bring them all the way in, so that gives you a lot of ways to win the game. Infielders are going to go halfway because they figure they can. That's a little bit surprising with the way that Revere can run, but they're going to take a chance they can still get a double play.
Rude from the left side, the first pitch to him. A little anxious, and it's 0-1. 0 for 4 so far this season.
I think when a guy's not up here for that long, maybe it could win a game for you.
Two now to LaRue.
A little bit towards left center with Bernardino. Pitch him away, play him away.
Abad has his signs. The runners lead off first and third. The 0-2 pitch. Fastball. Trying to sneak a 96-mile-an-hour fastball by him. Just missed low and in. 1-2. Swing and a miss. He got him. 2 outs. Two outs. Dominic Brown is the scheduled hitter. Dominic has done this year a very good job of staying in against left-handers. Doesn't matter what kind of lefty it is, but he's been able to stay in with these left-handers. One for 3 tonight with a walk.
Well, then just let Jimmy Rollins go if he wants to.
Yeah, they're not holding him on. He's got a big lead off first.
It doesn't mean anything, that run.
There he goes. That was a changeup, and it was up.
Ooh, he flinched.
Phillies left them loaded in the 8th inning. They have 2 in scoring position here in the 9th. The 1-1 pitch. Low ball 2.
Play by Suzuki. Get a lot of wild pitches on fastballs and miss her spot by that much.
John Mayberry's been a hero before. He's on deck.
Pretty good changeup coming off that 95.
80 coming off the first pitch changeup that was up. Dominic Brown set, so is Abad, the 2-2. And a line drive back toward the middle. Base hit, and the Phillies are going to win it. Ben Revere crosses the plate, and Dominic Brown is the hero tonight. An RBI single that gives the Phils a 5-4 victory. He didn't hit it hard, but he hit it enough to get it past the infield. And the first guy out there to greet him was Jonathan Papelbon, who blew his first save of the night, but his offense picked him up, and the Phillies win it 5-4 to take Game 1 of this series.
That was a great job to make contact there. As Tom said, it hit hard. It was a squirter. It was a fastball. It looked like he got in on him a little bit. He just fought it off. And from where they were playing their defense, there was no way they could get to that.
So Dominic Brown with a 2-hit night at RBI. He is the hero with the game-winning base hit. We said he stays in very well against these left-handed pitchers, and he stayed in on this one.
Yeah, it's a fastball right on the inside part of the plate, and he dropped the bat head on it, and he really gets jammed there. And look at this thing. Look at the crazy action on that as it goes into center field. That was a flubber ball.
Well, it's the first career walk-off hit for Dominic Brown. It scores Ben Revere. Give him some credit as well. We said Jonathan Papelbon was the first one out there. He didn't even let him get to first before he was already on the field. And then like a linebacker, he tracked down the former wide receiver and was trying to take him down to the ground. And Dominic Brown is down on the field with Murph. Murph?
All right, thank you very much, T-Mac. Yes, Jonathan Papelbon had a tracer coming right at you after that base hit. Let's first of all talk about it. Your first walk-off game winner of your career. That had to feel pretty good.
Right, yeah, it felt good. Just trying to stay short and quick right there. You got.
Why do they keep joining me into this? Talk about it, the short, quick swing.
Right, he threw a fastball right there. You know, I was looking away, just trying to react in, and, you know, got a good pitch to drive.
Yeah, I mentioned Jonathan Papelbon, the first one out there to thank you, I guess, and to congratulate you. How nice is it to pick up a guy who's been perfect all year for you guys?
Exactly. Papelbon's been great. When he came inside, I told him that we got him, we're going to fight for him, and, you know, we came out with the win.
You know, you're coming off that long road trip where not as much success as you would have hoped.
Right.
How good is it just to get a win like that?
Right. Oh, it feels great, especially against a team like the Nationals. Come in a division club and a rival of ours. We're just having a lot of fun out there.
All right, it looks like it. Congratulations, Dom. Back to you guys.
All right, Murph, thank you very much. We'll bring you a razor in just a few minutes. You can take care of that. Dominic Brown, his first career walk-off base hit against Fernando Abad. He stayed in there. It was floating every which way, but most importantly, it floated to center field. And right between the shortstop and second baseman, it brought home Ben Revere. And the Phillies win it 5-4 over the Washington Nationals. And a little shaving cream to boot from Freddie Galvis and Kevin Francis.